today. It's me, Mr. Bonkers, a real physical person here sharing this space with you. Hi, Mr. Bonkers. Isn't it so nice that we can sit here and talk to each other and have, come to welcome to the news. What's in the news today? Hi. Cool. Whole lot of news. Just lots of news. I'm starting to think that this whole pandemic thing might be a pretty big problem. Now, you probably already know that the global pandemic is, bad. So I won't belabor that point. It's just, with nearly 1 million reported coronavirus cases in the United States alone, representing about a third of global reported cases, and with over 50,000 deaths. When we filmed this, I said 50,000, but that number is now 70,000. Representing about a fourth of global reported deaths, the US is maybe not doing so well, at keeping people not sick and not dead. During this enormous health crisis, at least we can take comfort in knowing that not only do we have a shadow task force on coronavirus, but that the shadow task force on coronavirus is being run by this cool boy.
Unnamed White House officials have described your role as being something of running a shadow task force. How do you describe your role? How do you describe the qualifications you bring to your role?
Yeah, I would just say very simply, look, the president asked the vice president to run the task force. The vice president asked me to assist. I've been serving really at the direction of the vice president. He's asked me to get involved in different projects. The state still has a stockpile. And the notion of the federal stockpile was it's supposed to be our stockpile. It's not supposed to be state stockpiles that they then use.
That's right. Jared Kushner, who is not a medical doctor, or a scientist, or an epidemiologist, or a policy expert, or someone with a single qualification to run a shadow coronavirus task force, is now top corona shadow boy of the United States. Do we have a photo of that? That's a picture of a doll wearing a polo shirt. Do we have Kushner's actual photo? That's a painting of a Victorian-era boy. Can we please get an actual photo of Jared Kushner? That's Boy from the Fred Savage Howie Mandel vehicle, Little Monsters. Can we get a photo of Jared Kushner? That might actually be him. So Jared Kushner has no real quote-unquote experience that would quote-unquote qualify him to quote-unquote run a quote-unquote task force to handle quote-unquote a deadly pandemic that threatens millions of lives. But what experience does the haunted ventriloquist dummy Jared Kushner have? Well, he married Ivanka Trump, for one, demonstrating his ability to be a real boy, capable of participating in the corporeal ritual known as marriage. Also, his father is Charles Kushner, a real estate mogul who spent 14 months in federal prison for illegal campaign contributions, tax evasion, and witness tampering. So he has experience taking over his father's real estate business in his family's time of crisis. And he's left a great legacy with that real estate business and how it runs. Like how it's currently suing tenants who can't afford to pay their rent right now because of the pandemic! Among Kushner's many other talents is his ability to read 25 books on the Israel-Palestine conflict, thus solving the decades-long conflict in the Middle East. The problem being, nobody had read those books. Kushner's also been one of the early voices to speak on the coronavirus, advising Trump back in February that the media was exaggerating the threat of the virus, which was coincidentally around the same time Trump had this to say about coronavirus.
This is their new hoax. We have lost nobody to coronavirus in the United States. The press is in hysteria mode.
Wow, he sure was wrong. I'm sure he feels real bad about being wrong, right? Given that over 70,000 people have died at the time of this recording? No, he doesn't? And he's not being held accountable? And we live in a hell void where morality gets sucked into sticky and darkness like light disappearing into a black hole in a cold, cold universe?
It's okay, Cody. Nihilism is for chumps and nerds. But you're cool.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bonkers. Okay.
I love you, Cody.
I love you too. So, how is Jared Kushner, J. Crew mannequin, come to life due to the misguided wish of an orphan and then turned back into a mannequin after they saw what they had done? Handling being Corona Shadow Task Force Meister. Well, as you heard in that clip earlier, Kushner claimed that when it comes to states obtaining medical supplies needed to keep people with COVID alive, the federal government isn't responsible.
The state still has a stockpile. And the notion of the federal stockpile was it's supposed to be our stockpile. It's not supposed to be state stockpiles that they then use.
So the national stockpile isn't for the states to use. It's for the nation. A nation made up of states, because Kushner's brain is very good. He is the top, the smartest pandemic boy. Weirdly, the Strategic National Stockpile website says, quote, "Strategic National Stockpile is the nation's largest supply of life-saving pharmaceuticals and medical supplies for use in a public health emergency, severe enough to cause local supplies to run out. When state, local, tribal, and territorial responders request federal assistance to support their response efforts, the stockpile ensures that the right medicines and supplies get to those who need them most during an emergency." So, gee, it sounds like the Strategic National Stockpile is there to strategically give medical supplies to states in an emergency, such as, like, I'm just tossing this out there, like a global pandemic. Whoa, hold on, correction! That's just what the website said on April 2nd. On April 3rd, a day after Kushner's remarks and after multiple people pointed out the discrepancy between what he said and the Strategic National Stockpile's own website, it was edited to state this: "The Strategic National Stockpile's role is to supplement state and local supplies during public health emergencies. Many states have products stockpiled as well. The supplies, medicines, and devices for life-saving care contained in the stockpile can be used as a short-term stopgap buffer when the immediate supply of adequate amounts of these materials may not be immediately available." So you see, the stockpile, it's just to supplement states' own supplies, to dole out parsimoniously to states who really, really want them. I'm trying to think of a metaphor for this attitude. It'd be like tossing rolls of paper towels to desperate, needy people during a natural disaster. As if you're the king of paper towels, who hath deigned share his paper product gifts with a select few. Oh, right, yeah, that was a thing that happened. Yep. Wow, it's almost as if the elitist king of the money pile attitude doesn't just start and stop with Trump, but also extends to all the ghouls he surrounds himself with. Neat. Cue transition bumper, I think it's super neat. So, Jared Kushner has set himself up to be the medical supplies decider, deciding who gets to have the life-saving ventilators and PPE that are in short supply. It's supply and demand, baby! He's the supply, and doctors and sick people are the demand, baby. Basic economics, and trust me, there is demand. Doctors are being forced to reuse masks, which isn't great given that masks become less effective when they get wet or, completely covered in coronavirus. Ventilators are in such short supply, doctors are already trying to jerry-rig ventilators to be used on multiple patients at once, using supplies bought at Home Depot. See more fun DIY life-saving device projects on Medicinterest. It's like Pinterest, but for doctors to make ventilators out of hot glue and old soda bottles. So, states who are desperate to get medical supplies must go through the first draft Justin Trudeau wax sculpture made by a junior unpaid intern at Madame Tussauds Museum, Jared Kushner. Juliette Kayyem, faculty chair of the Homeland Security Project at Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government, told ProPublica, "If you can reach Jared, if you can applaud Jared, if you can convince him that you're the most needy, he will deliver for you."
France is not like other children. It is very important that you follow these rules. Be good to him and he'll be good to you.
If you tell Jared he is a good boy, a sweet boy, maybe he will let the people in your state live. Normal. Good. And if you don't please Jared, well, learn from Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who has criticized Trump and the government's response to the pandemic, and who is rumored to be in the list of vice presidential picks for Biden. Because remember the primary? There's still like primary news going on, apparently. And trust me, it's all terrible. And I feel like maybe we should have nominated the guy who was calling for Medicare for all during a global pandemic, and maybe we shouldn't have made people go vote in person during a global pandemic. But I don't think I can deal with talking about this grim subject right now. So back to the pandemic. Governor Gretchen Whitmer criticized the Trump administration and might be a Democratic VP pick. She has to go through Jared Kushner to get medical supplies for her state. Jared Kushner, meanwhile, is still heading Trump's re-election campaign. So it's not totally surprising that Whitmer is saying she's not getting aid for her state, and that vendors are being told not to send stuff to Michigan. This claim of neglect is somewhat corroborated by Trump's own press conference, where he said he instructed Mike Pence not to call Governor Whitmer and Washington Governor Jay Inslee to talk about the corona situation. Trump told reporters that he told Pence, "Mike, don't call the governor of Washington. You're wasting your time with him. Don't call the woman in Michigan." When reporters asked him to clarify, Trump said, "You know what I say? If they don't treat you right, I don't call." But don't worry, this neglect putting hundreds of thousands of citizens' lives in danger because a single person wasn't nice enough to the spiteful man isn't just limited to Michigan and Washington. Ha, yay! According to the New York Times, New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo said the state would need 30,000 ventilators, a number which Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, backed up, saying on an interview with CNN, "There are a lot of different calculations. My experience, I tend to believe Governor Cuomo." But Jared Kushner, real estate maven and voted most likely to model for Tall Yacht Boys Weekly in high school, balked at this number, saying his expert calculations come up with a different result. "I have all this data about ICU capacity. I'm doing my own projections, and I've gotten a lot smarter about this. New York doesn't need all the ventilators." Reminder, Jared Kushner is not a doctor, epidemiologist, statistician, economist, policy expert, mathematician, but he is a very good September for Yacht Boys Weekly's annual Yacht Boys stretched out like a Gumby character of the year calendar. But don't worry, Kushner has been planting a whole bunch of his own experts into the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which, according to Politico, includes his own college roommate and a bunch of McKinsey consultants. No, not that one. Other ones. Anyway, a senior official told the New York Times that it was as if a frat party descended from a UFO and invaded the federal government. So, you know, that actually doesn't sound so bad. Maybe they'll just do some keg stands and make you smell their farts before they give you PPE. Or maybe they'll all help the Trump administration with Project Airbridge, where the US government ships in protective gear and medical supplies and delivers them into the desperate, pleading hands of private companies to then sell to the states. Here's Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, pronounced J.B. Pritzker, explaining this streamlined process.
We're bidding, unfortunately, for all of these items of equipment against the federal government and against the other states and against other countries, because what the White House has done is created, they call this the air bridge, where they're bringing stuff back from China to the United States, and then they're delivering it to private companies in the United States, not to the states.
Hey, you know what they say about the middleman? You shouldn't cut out the middleman. You should definitely have one, so that middleman can make money, especially in a deadly pandemic. In fact, it's been so difficult for some states to get medical supplies. There are Ocean's 11 type schemes going on to try to get the supplies to the state to avoid it getting seized by the federal government. Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker, who said the government seized the previous shipment of PPE his state had purchased, had to smuggle in medical supplies for his state by hiding them on board the New England Patriots plane. So maybe the Patriots smuggling in deflated footballs during Deflategate was just practice for saving lives by smuggling in PPE. So to summarize, Jared Kushner stands between the states and medical supply stockpiles. A very calming thought. As long as we're nice to him and tell him he's cool, and no, actually, he looked really, really cool in that flak jacket, maybe he'll let us all live.
You wouldn't hurt me, would you, Ron?
You won't come to life and move around of your own accord and control stockpiles of medical equipment, will you, Mr. Bonkers?
Of course not, Cody. As long as you keep feeding me blood.
I knew I could count on you, Mr. Bonkers. That's how we share blood. I'm not making out with him. I'm giving him blood. Grow up!
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. And we got patreon.com/Stoll News.
Don't forget the podcast.
Even more news is the name
Of the podcast,
Yeah! Show me your blood!
show me your blood.